Thank you all. It's wonderful to be here in Cleveland, and Lou would have loved this. He's here with his heroes, Otis and Dion. He's here with B.B. King, who he loved and admired, Aretha, who he saw so many times, his dear friend, Doc Pomus, who taught him so much, and who was the you he sang to in his beautiful record, Magic and Lost. Of course, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is the place where names of great musicians become completely magic words. Buddy Holly, Little Richard, the Coasters. Names become the groove, and they evoke whole worlds. And now Lou Reed is one of these magic words. Lou! Ooh! Ooh! Lou's songs are full of life and complexity, and they are about people who have names. Candy, and Caroline, and Little Joe, and Junior Dad, and a man. So now they're all here too, the people from his imagination, along with his serious rock and roll groove. Like he said, despite all amputations, you can still dance to the rock and roll station, and it was all right. Lou really knew the difference between himself as a writer and as a person and as a rock and roll star, and he could shift between these roles with such skill. He could take his fame off like one of his leather jackets, or he could just decide to use it. The fame itself was not really important. Lou was genuinely proud of what he'd done, and he could really appreciate and value his own work. And tonight, he would have been so immensely proud to be part of this. Lou loved musicians, and he played with so many: Ornette, Pavarotti, Metallica. He brought Jimmy Scott back out into the light, and he was an early champion and supporter of Anthony. He had a really big talent for friendship, and he had so many friends: Hal Wilner, Julian Schnabel, Bob Ezrin, Doc Pomus, Mick Rock, John Zorn, Bill Bentley, Tony Visconti. And Lou loved hearing new music. And he and his friend, the encyclopedic and fantastical Hal Wilner, had a radio show called New York Shuffle, which was all about featuring new music and new bands. Now, in the last year and a half, I've heard from literally hundreds of people, and they've said how much Lou has changed their lives, pushing them towards something, pushing them to be better. Recently, a guitar player told me about a time that she was playing with Lou on stage, and it was some kind of benefit with lots of people stepping out and doing solos. And like many musicians who played with Lou, she was nervous about what he had to say about her playing, so she stepped out and did a solo, and she said she thought it was pretty good. And after she finished, she passed him on stage, and she said, so, and he said, is that all you've got? And she couldn't believe he'd said that, and she was really frustrated. And an hour later, she did another solo, and this time she just stepped on it. And she passed him by again, and he said, that's what I'm talking about. Lou. Yeah. Lou was a wirehead, and he loved gear, he loved good sound. He was a photographer, he was an inventor, he was a warrior, a Tai Chi practitioner, eagle claw practitioner. He was a great dancer. He could take watches apart and put them back together. He was kind, he was hilarious. He was never, ever cynical. Lou was my best friend, and he was also the person I admire most in the world. And then the 21 years we were together, there were a few times I was mad, and there were a few times I was frustrated, but I was never, ever bored. When we met, we were both touring musicians, and we often had to be apart. And recently, a musician friend was telling me that he and his girlfriend were on the road so much that they decided not to live anywhere at all. And I said, how do you do that? Isn't that like disorienting, not to have a place anywhere? and he said, "She is my home." And I realized that that was what it was like for me and Lou. It just didn't really matter where we were. Lou knew how to love, and he had a huge talent for it. Lou loved his sister Meryl and her family. He loved and admired his Aunt Shirley, who's also known as Red Shirley, who was the subject of his film. He was also a radical innovator and an artist right until the very end of his life. He made groundbreaking work like the live versions of Metal Machine music. And one of his last works was Lulu, and an opera he did with Bob Wilson, and also played on the road with Metallica. And this work is really challenging, and I had a hard time with it. There are many sharp edges and so much rage. And after Lou's death, David Bowie made a big point of saying to me, "Listen, Lulu is Lou's greatest work. It is his masterpiece. Just wait, it will be like Berlin. It will take everyone a while to catch up." And recently I've been reading the lyrics, and it is so fierce. It's written by a man who understood fear and rage and abandonment and terror and revenge and love, and it is raging. Lulu was Lear, and anyone who heard Lou sing Junior Dad will never forget the experience of a song torn out of a body. This was rock and roll taken to whole new levels. Lou understood pain, and he understood beauty. And he knew that these two are often intertwined, and that was what energized them and made them vibrate. And this duality between yin and yang was also what drew him to Tai Chi. And he was a Tai Chi master and composed beautiful meditation music that's used in Tai Chi all over the world. As meditators and students of Buddhism, for many years, we often talked about the advice of our Buddhist teacher, which had become central to our lives. And one of the things our teacher, Mingyur Rinpoche, often told us, and something we tried very hard to learn, was this. He said, you should try to practice how to feel sad without actually being sad, which is very hard to do, how to feel sad without actually being sad. Now since, all these pages are going, okay. Lou. As I said, Lou taught me a lot about love, and I found out what it is to love and to be completely loved in return. And this will be a part of me for the rest of my life. And it's also something that changes you forever, to have the love of your life die in your arms. And when Lou died in mine, I watched as he did Tai Chi forms with his hands. And I watched the look of joy and surprise that came over his face as he died. And I became less afraid. One more thing he taught me. He crosses my mind every hour. And he kind of sits inside with a lit cigar and a sword, and he's laughing that amazing, joyous laugh. It seems like after a year and a half, I'm still waiting for him to call, and sometimes he actually does call. And suddenly I remember one of his phrases, or some random words, or some conversations we had, or some songs we made up. And I'm reminded also of the 3 rules that we came up with, rules to live by. And I'm just going to tell you what they are, because they come in really handy, because things happen so fast. You know, it's good to have a few catchwords to fall back on, and you don't have enough time to think. And the first is, 1, don't be afraid of anyone. Now, can you imagine living your life afraid of no one? 2, get a really good bullshit detector and learn how to use it. And 3 is be really, really tender. And with those 3 things, you don't need anything else. Just one more thing. For people who've experienced this when their partner has died, it's really a great shock. And part of the shock is that you're propelled into a magic world where you finally understand many things that were complete mysteries up to that point. And so finally, I see how people can turn into light and turn into music and eventually turn into other people, and how fluid these boundaries really are. And that's what the Hall of Fame seems to me is it's all about, the transformation of people into names that stand for the beauty and style and the era of their music. They say you die 3 times. The first is when your heart stops, and the second is when you're buried or cremated, and the third is the last time someone says your name. I am so happy that Lou's name is added to the list of people who will be remembered for the beautiful music they make. Can we Lou him one more time? Lou. And Lou, my sweet one, I love your last song called The Power of the Heart. You know me, I like to dream a lot of what there is and what there's not. But mainly, I dream of you a lot. The power of the heart. The power of the heart. I accept this in your name, Lou. One more Lou. 10 more seconds of Lou.